what's up? Thought I'd try something new for this game. I might some commentary over the gameplay, just kind of explain some decisions that I made during the game. Hopefully give this video a little bit more context, makes it a little bit more helpful. So here we are, flying the 21SMT, obviously 10.3, Russia rank 7. It's a very good plane. Currently I'm using it to grind research to MiG-29, just so I can get a little bit of a break from playing the MLD. And I also feel like it's potentially a little bit of a better plane for the BR than the MLD. The MLD is still very competitive, but it has sort of a very compressed matchmaker in that it fights with MiG-29s, faces F-14s, faces F-16s, and it can be a bit overshadowed even though it's a very good aircraft, especially in the missile department. Although they may seem sort of mediocre in comparison to AIM-9Ls and R-24ERs, or sorry, R-27ERs, their benefit of being IR sort of makes it nice to get jump scare kills, as I call them, if you shoot from outside of the field of vision. But anyway, back to the MiG-21SMT. For 10.3, it has a very decent matchmaker. Really, the only time it ever struggles is if it's up tier to 11.3. It's not quite as good as it was 1 or 2 patches ago, simply because almost everything you face is going to have flares, but it has great flight performance. It's one of the fastest planes to the BR. It has amazing armament, combined with great flight performance. You know, you have the tram, the A6C tram, one step below it with AIM-9Ls, but obviously it's not a Mach 2 interceptor. Of course, it has flares, so it's better than something like the J-35D. After the GSH was buffed, it's a very competitive gun now. I like it a lot in that it one-shots. It can be a little bit more annoying to aim at high speeds, but when you're in this sort of matchmaker, where a lot of what you're facing has pretty poor acceleration, you know, your A-10s, your F-5s, stuff like that, it's definitely not a problem. And in terms of the missiles, for this BR, even though R-60s aren't the greatest, they're very good, because you will find stuff without flares, and also the planes you face with flares are very slow, and typically fly in such a manner that you can get either long-range shots, and by long range I mean like 4 to 5 kilometers, or you can sort of watch their behavior, and because you know the average premium jet player isn't going to be very good, you can sort of ascertain just by watching when they're looking at you and when they're not. And obviously if they're not looking at you, they can't flare a missile that they don't see. So, you're going to see an example of this here in a second. We're heading over towards a J-35XS. Tried to warn this MiG-21 in chat, fortunately he didn't see it. And now we're at high altitude against an FAE and a J-35XS. The FAE is a slightly worse version of you. It has worse missiles, worse speed. Probably better 1v1 performance, simply due to retention. But as you can see here, he's not coming towards me, he's going up for some reason. And so I can kind of guess that he's not looking at me, send an R-60 at him from like 4 or 5 kilometers, and if he doesn't, you know, get some speed back or flare, it's going to smack him right in the face, which it does. So that's one of my main enemies going. If I could, I'd really like to get rid of that J-35XS. 6 AIM-9Js are pretty spicy for the VR. So we start heading over towards him, seeing if I can drop an R-60 on him from above, and then I kind of see there's quite a bit going on below me. You know, A-10s, there's a MiG-21 BIS down there, the Finnish one. And so I decide, well, those 2 guys are the most dangerous, so I'd like to get them out of the game. I really don't want to be spammed with missiles later on. MiG-21 BIS, of course, better than me in every way, so I sort of sneak behind him and fire off a missile, and it catches it right in the engine. F5C here, same thing, he's not really paying attention to me. Shoot an R-60 at him, and we go ahead and get him. A-10 in front of us. Don't really want to use a missile on him, because it's an A-10, they have infinite flares, and also because they're so slow, kind of sort of just go up behind them and gum pretty painlessly. Bit of bad aim there, but drop our forward kill, and we look around to see, reassess the battle and see what's going on, kind of reposition ourselves. We've already used most of our missiles, we only have 1 R-60 left, so we want to be careful in how we use it here. We want to make sure that this R-60 makes an impact in a way that it will be either safe to return to base, or just won't generally be wasted. So I'm looking around here and all I see are enemies. I'm only seeing 1 F5 teammate who's not really going to be able to distract those enemies. And so I'm kind of just waiting for the battle to develop, waiting to see who I should choose to go for. F104 here decides to make a move. Not a bad decision. You know, what we've got here is A-10s and F5s, sort of just ground attacking. So I'm just kind of waiting for a target of opportunity to present itself. At this point, I think it's a 4v5 in favor of the enemy. So we're definitely looking to even things out, especially with that 190 over there. I wouldn't really count that, so sort of 3v5. 4v5. And again, we see these F5s here, and I'm really just looking for someone who isn't paying attention. Someone who's turning away from me as I'm coming in. And that's what happens to this F5 here. He's tunnel visioned on a friendly F5, so we cut his tail off with an R60. Other F5 here, I decide to go for the gun kill, but as you'll see here shortly, it doesn't really materialize. I do actually pull lead somehow. I guess I came in with so much excess speed I had it to burn, but before there beats him up, we almost get run into, and we almost get fired by that F5's AIM-9E. And at this point, I'm down to no missiles, about 100 gun rounds, and I'm trying to figure out if it's worth sticking around and pursuing one of the last two enemies, who are at this point a J-35XS and an F5C, or if I should return to base. Sorry, last three enemies, a J-35XS and an F5C. Sort of just trying to make a decision here. I'm a bit split because I don't want to start returning to base and leave these guys alone. I at least want to give them some situational awareness here. Obviously, SMT, very good RRB plane, but it does struggle against a competent F5C player. J-35XS sort of just plays the same game as the SMT. I would argue the J-35XS is a little bit better, but its BR does make it slightly less competitive, considering it is 10.7, I think. One of the remaining enemies pops an Avenger. That's going to be the F5C. And so I'm kind of wondering, is he around here? But it wouldn't really make sense for him to be, because obviously there's 4 or 5 of us here in the AO. So I finally make up my mind, if I'm going to be dealing with a J-35XS and an F5C, I'm going to want to have armament and fuel. At this point I'm running about 10 minutes of fuel left, so I decide to go ahead and return to base. I'll go ahead and fast forward this here, because it's just me flying in a straight line. So, as I'm returning to base, I'm just kind of checking around, make sure I'm not going to get jumped by the J-35XS while I'm flying in a straight line, and the J-35XS goes ahead and dies in a head-on. Load as a trait. Here's something interesting. The Focke-Wulf 190 somehow engages the F5C and survives for long enough that Blind Hunt runs out, or the Avenger runs out. I can land, fully rearm, and take off again, and he somehow will still be alive. The F-104S here is our only other main fighter, so that 190 is on his own out there. I really don't know how he's still alive, but he is. So I take off again, and I start heading on over there. The 190, even though I normally don't really find it very funny when people take props to top tier, actually played a pretty big role here in keeping him spotted. Kind of gave me an idea where to head over to find this guy. So I'm heading over there at the moment. Just kind of checking around, looking around. At this point, the F5C is the only guy left. He activates another Blind Hunt for some reason, even though he's the last guy and we're not. I'm not really sure what his plan is. He sees me, apparently, pushes ahead on with me. So, just looking for that, making sure not to die, because this should be a pretty easy win. Go ahead and nose on over. Even if he pulled back into me, I should have been able to win the one circle there, straight to Dazzling, and I know this probably won't hit, but I have 4 R60s, so I decided to send one at him anyway. Just in case he's not looking, but unfortunately he is, and flares it off. And he's heading towards the F-104, who is blind hunted for some reason. He's in the clouds here, but I have him on radar. So, just sort of keeping track of him. And this is where you're going to see something come into play that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. In that, if you know they're not looking at you, you can hit an R60 that shouldn't land. I see him pull into the F-104. I think he may be committing, but in the end he doesn't, and he continues out of range with that R60. In a tail chase like this, you really don't want to shoot them any further than 1.5 kilometers. There he is, starts turning. I think he might be looking, and then I notice that missiles from my airfield are coming in. And I think, hold on, he fled the last one, but if he's looking at a Roland, he's not going to be looking behind him. And that last missile goes at his tail. That is the 6-0 game. So, again, just to emphasize, if you watch people's behavior, especially at these BRs that have a lot of premiums, you can very often find that if they're not looking, you can hit very cheeky missile shots that probably shouldn't land. So, here we are.